everyone, and welcome to the latest MASH session. I am delighted to welcome Laurie Hoinkes, who is Managing Director at Montgomery. Hi, Laurie, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
This feels really easy, so it's like two friends having a chat. So we'll just pretend that there's no one else listening. Let's kick off, because you're not a long-term lifer in the exhibition industry. You are comparatively new at only 3.5 years old. So you bring with you some really interesting views and some interesting perceptions of the industry. And I'd love to start by understanding from you, when you joined the industry, what surprised you and you thought we were a bit behind with, and what was really impressive?
Okay, well, you're right. So I've only been 3.5 years in the industry, came from a completely different background. So I'm an engineer. I worked in manufacturing for most of my career, mainly doing transformation and change. So working for companies that really needed to move from here to here and do it quickly because they were just under a whole bunch of competitive threats. So kind of an interesting background. And I ended up working through a business group, and I met someone who sat on the board as a non-exec director for Fresh Montgomery at the time. We're now Montgomery Events. And anyway, they put me in touch with Damien when he was looking for a new MD's role. And I didn't know anything really. I mean, I knew there must be some sort of industry around exhibitions, but I wouldn't have known, anyone who worked in it or given it much thought at all. And I think one of the things that really impressed me was how much work it takes to pull these off. So one of the first exhibitions I went to was IFE, which is the UK's largest food and drink exhibition, and they've got international pavilions, and there was all this content going on, and so before I'd even started, I went to IFE, and I just remember thinking all the things that were in sort of the show guide, all the events, content that was going on, all these exhibitors, everything I looked at and looked around at, I thought to myself, someone had to figure this out. They had to sell it to that person. They had to put that content together. They had to build that relationship to get that speaker there. And so I was just, for the first time, looking at it thinking, oh my goodness, there must be a shed load of work that needs to be done to make these things happen. And how exciting is that to be a part of?
I know people always say, exhibition organisers, the market often think all we do is book the shed and everything happens magically, but it's so much work that goes into it. Agree?
Yeah, tremendous amount of work. And I think because I came from a background where data was really important, I was also thinking about all the data that must also exist. So I was quite keen to figure out, what do we do with our data now? I know when I met Damien, one of the things I said in the interview was, looking at where you're sitting and what you run and organize, I think you have a data company and you just happen to collect your data running exhibitions. And I think it's, really important that you understand that sort of value that you have in your data and that you're leveraging it. And I was quite excited to get into the whole data piece. And I think I was a little surprised at how sort of far behind we were in that respect. And maybe it was just Montgomery, but I don't think so. Talking to other people, I think that data has been a huge challenge for us as an industry, and something we've not focused enough on. And so I think that was my biggest surprise, was that, I think there's huge opportunity in data here, and we probably got a ways to go to get there.
I'm going to come pick up on that data bit in a bit, because I absolutely agree with you. It's quite interesting how little we've used data. We're very great at collecting attributable data, so names and job titles, but overlaying that with some interesting behavioural data is going to be an interesting trick going forward. We'll come on to that in a second. So 2020, not in our top 10 favourite years. And there'll be things that you were planning at Montgomery, some big trends, some big picture things that you're going to put in place that clearly haven't happened. Would love to hear what were those things? What were the big trends that you were anticipating? How do you think they've been knocked with COVID? What are the benefits and what are the challenges as a result of that? Big question.
Yeah, that's a big question. So I think that we had been, quite aware of some of the macro trends in the exhibition space. for quite a while, and we had been looking at, how we were going to react to that. So some of the things that we've seen is that, we've seen a decrease in visitors. I think that people haven't seen the value that they used to see in coming to exhibitions, and so we've seen a decrease in visitors. We've seen probably some stability in the number of exhibitors, but a decrease in the size of the stands that they were taking, and a real increase in wanting to make sure that they were getting a real return on their investment, that they were going to want to quantify it, want to understand it. And so we needed to really combat that. And one of the things we were working towards was to bring our two largest exhibitions together, one that does food and drink and one that does all things hospitality, into one big event in 2021. So I would have been working through 2020 on bringing that event together, and also working with a few partners as well. So I think there's a bit of consolidation needed in the food, drink, and hospitality exhibition space. So what I wanted to do was find really great partners to work with so that we could really offer everything, in one place. So that's what we were really focusing on and excited about. And obviously that got knocked on its head somewhat. I think that what we will see as a result of COVID is some of those trends will just accelerate in terms of, people will be even more focused on the return on investment. And to get the right return on investment, we're going to need to be even better at personalization and segmentation, and really drilling down to the specific needs of either the visitors or the exhibitors, and really meeting those needs. I think 2020 is like 5 years happened in sort of the evolution of where we were from an industry. But I think the one trend that will reverse from 2020, so the little silver lining might be that I think visitors, any of the visitors or the buyers that we speak to, they really miss it, and they really realize how actually it's really valuable. They value the conversations that they have when they run into an old colleague, in the aisles, or they bump into a supplier that they haven't spoke to in a while, or they see the people. So in that serendipity of I really love it. And I think we talked to people who didn't come this year but had come the year before, and why didn't they come this year? And some of them are saying, I kind of regret that I didn't, especially because our big event happened just before lockdown. And I definitely will be coming the next time. So I think the one trend that will reverse is that I think people will have felt in 2020 that they really do miss that face-to-face human connection.
And do you think that's going to manifest itself in people attending more events, or do you think it's going to be when I do attend, I'm going to engage more, deeper, many more meetings? How do you think that's going to pan out?
I mean, I think it could be a bit of both. It's hard to say exactly, but I do think that there will be people who maybe attend more, but I really believe for those who are attending, they're going to, like you said, be more focused on wanting to interact and to engage and to share and to learn. I think that there will be a renewed sort of excitement and vigor around what we get out of and what we put into events as visitors, and so I think that will be a little silver lining.
And in terms of visitors coming back to our shows, so there's a real swell of positivity around vaccination program, around very rapid testing in this country. So that feels a little bit positive with regards to UK domestic markets. You've got some big international shows there. How do you feel? When are we going to start to see the numbers returning in the volumes that we're used to?
I think 2021 is still going to be a really challenging year for us because of that. For that reason, we did make the decision to push off our international events until 2022, because I do think that we're just going to need a little bit of time for that, the vaccines to ramp up, for the confidence to come back, and for our international travelers to be able to confidently know they're going to be able to commit to something. But for what it's worth, in my opinion, I think that we're going to struggle a little bit in the first half of 2021 as things are ramping. We will have a bit of a blip, I think, right after Christmas, just because of people wanting to spend a bit more time with their families and pushing it a little bit. But I think that increasingly we'll feel more and more positive as 2021 goes. There'll be each month more progress, more vaccinations, more examples of some events taking place. So I think you'll just see this nice like hockey stick curve of excitement and positivity in 2021. So I'd say anyone in the sort of late sort of spring, early summer and onwards should feel pretty optimistic.
I worry a little. So many organisers are maybe doing one or two, some light touch in the first half of the year, but September, for me, that's tsunami September. Everyone is going to be piling in, every organizer, all the shows that we haven't run in 2020, we're all going to be doing in September 2021. And I think there's going to be a huge knock-on effect with suppliers and contractors. What's Montgomery doing to prepare for that sort of thing?
Well, one of the things that that we've done is just make sure we like to have long-standing relationships, and so we've been talking to our suppliers and making sure that they understand. So for next year, for Montgomery events, we have 3 events that we're going to run. We would normally run 8 in a year, so we're making sure that they're well up for the events that we have and confident that they will be in the right place. I mean, often too, what we will do is not necessarily put all of our eggs in one basket, but sort of share it out a little bit to make sure that we're supporting the industry in sort of an appropriate way that way. So I feel like we've got what we need taken care of, but I do worry for the industry overall. I think there's going to be a huge amount of pressure, like you said, when the tsunami September comes, that there will be people who want to do events and the community be ready and everyone would be up for it, but they'll struggle to get the suppliers because this is going to have huge implications on people and their businesses.
It's there's that lovely line, isn't there? Abraham Lincoln, if I had 8 hours to cut down a tree, I'd use 6 of those sharpening my axe. And actually, never has that been more relevant for what's happening in September next year. We've really got to be ready now. I thought it was really interesting what you were talking about with ROI. And I think as organisers, we're sort of on the ball to a certain extent with exhibitor ROI, but I think that visitor ROI is still a comparatively new thing for us, and we tend to not focus on it so much because usually our visitors are not paying us money. Can you talk a little bit about what you've been doing on that visitor ROI thing?
So I think that's where data becomes really important, because I think that we need to understand our visitors really, really well so that we know what they do value. And so what we've been doing is in the background, we created a new department, a business intelligence department. And we've been collecting data about our visitors and making sure that we understand them that little bit more than we did. We're watching their behavior. So what emails do they open? What links do they click on? Where do they go when they come to our exhibitions? Who do they let scan their badge? What content do they interact with? So we're trying to collect as much information about them as possible, so that way we can predict what would be of interest and value to them and make sure that we're providing that in our communication and engagement outside the show and at the show. I think that's probably the most important thing that we can do is that. The other thing is we put them into buckets, so we know that food, drink, and hospitality represents a whole bunch of types of visitors, but what we know is there's probably 6 or 7 personas that are really key to us. So we will bucket them as well, and then really try and understand what is it that community is struggling with? What problems do they have? What solutions do they need? What would help them make more money this year? So I always like to follow the money. And so how could they make more money? What would allow them to do that? So how do we provide them with solutions? And then And then when we are engaging them, doing it in that sort of really focused way to make sure that they get that value or that ROI with their time, because I think that is you're spot on there. They have lots of options. They can go and get information about food, drink, and hospitality, or any of the other sectors that other people serve, in many different ways and countless ways. And so why are they going to come and listen to you or spend time with you? I think it's absolutely important.
You touched briefly before on serendipity, and we always say with an exhibition, you go to an exhibition to meet someone you didn't know you needed to meet, who will solve a problem you didn't know you had with a solution you didn't know existed. And it's this beautiful being in the right place at the right time without even realizing it. That's great in a physical show. We've seen 2020 being this absolute uplift of digital events of all different types and quality, etc. How do you even begin to replicate that serendipity piece in a digital event? Is it possible?
I mean, I think it is to a certain extent, sort of talking about what I was saying before, where what you're trying to do is, if you say, I'm going to focus on, one of our communities is chefs, and if you really understand the chef community and, like I said, what their issues are, where they need support, solutions, how you can help them be more effective, I think then what you do is you're providing and content for them that's really going to resonate. It feels hyper personal to their needs and their wants, and so it is a very manufactured serendipity, because I've gone and have been sort of stalking this sort of group of people for a while. I've been collecting data about them. I've been stress testing it with smaller focus groups, and now I feel like aha. So it seems just very like, oh, they just are so in tune with what I need and what I want, and this is great. And I didn't even know I wanted this, and I found it here on the event. So I think it's the same sort of thing, but it takes a really deep understanding of the persona, a little bit of stress testing with some focus groups and having the right sort of conversations, and then going out there, and then it is that test and learn. So you're like, oh, I thought I had this, I put it out there, and of these three things, these two got lots of interest and this one just fell flat. Well, I was wrong there. Why was I wrong, and how do I do it better the next time? And you can't do this for every single person who might visit your exhibition or engage with you. So you've got to sort of pick those buckets of key personas that are really the most important. Those ones that, if you have them involved, the exhibitors, if you can drop some really key names from any of those personas, that's when the exhibitors go, oh, I'm excited, they're there. Or, oh, that person. Okay, that's good. So you got, it's that triage of the 80-20 rule and stuff.
And just sort of thinking about digital next year for Montgomery, how's digital going to play out for you?
So we are always trying to evolve our capability and what we're able to do. We have like I said, we created about 2 years ago a business intelligence team. And what we're looking to do in the next year is to start to grow that team and to really put in place, I think, just increasing capabilities. And I would love to have a limitless amount of money to do whatever I wanted from a data and business intelligence point of view, but we don't. We have a sort of finite amount. So we spend a lot of time thinking about where's the best place to focus. For us, it is really all about the visitor. So everything we're doing, we started when I came into the business 3.5 years ago, I started really with the exhibitor and making sure that we had the basic. We didn't even have a real CRM that we really used in any meaningful way, and we had lots of things that we needed to sort out. But at this point, we're really focused on the visitor and really increasing our capabilities there and testing and trying lots of things. So I think that's for us. And I think we're just poised to, as things pick up again, we will grow that department. And I think we'll see increasingly we put more and more investment in that. I think that it's we're going to want to get some data scientists, which we don't have at the moment, and just start to really take things to the next level. And I think we'll see that that department grow over the years.
I think the concept of data scientists, that's smart. The world is changing. Everywhere else is doing this big data piece, and it's we talk about people love to be part of a really big community because there's safety in numbers, but they also like to be part of a small tribe. And having that data depth is going to be fundamentally important. One last question then, Laurie. Thinking about next year and thinking about people listening, what's your biggest piece of advice? What's your one pass it forward that you would give them?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give would be that don't get distracted by what 2020 has thrown up at us too much. At the end of the day, we do run events and we run exhibitions, and we have our core business model. And while I think we can evolve it to a certain extent, we don't want to get just too distracted by it, because things are increasingly coming back to a more recognizable normal, and so just not getting too distracted by short-term needs, and keeping an eye on where you're going long term, and making sure that the decisions that you're taking now are helping you move to where you need to be in 3, 5, 10 years down the road. And that's not easy to do necessarily, especially when you have, financial pressures that, most of us are experiencing with what 2020 has brought. But I think that's what I'm trying to do, is to not get too distracted in the short term, and to really keep a long-term view of what I need to do and focusing there.
I think that's an absolutely brilliant thing for us to end on. Thank you very much, Laurie. Really grateful to have you sharing your thoughts and insights. And thank you very much to everyone for joining us. Hope to see you again soon. Thank you.